What's good, everyone? This is Dev the Coolest.
And this is JB.
And welcome to #SlickTalk. Hey.
Yay, what a hashtag. Hashtag SlickTalk.
The hashtag. It. Welcome to SlickTalk. We hope you're taking care of yourselves, you're staying safe, you're social distancing, all of that great stuff, taking your vitamins, and doing everything you need to do to take care of yourself. Welcome to episode 3. We have a very, very special guest on the line,
we do.
On the screen. Yes, we have RayBae. Hey!
Yeah.
What's good?
Welcome back, RayBae.
What's good, y'all?
Welcome back. Now, y'all that have been rocking with us for a minute.
Thank you.
RayBae is one of the original 3 of SlickTalk, and he's back with us today to have this conversation with us. And what are we talking about, JB? Well, first of all, how are you doing? How are you doing, RayBae? Let's start.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty great. You know, life has changed a lot. I moved to LA finally. Also, I'm unemployed now, which is I thought it would be stressful, but it's actually kind of fun. I don't have to do things I don't want to do.
Okay.
And also, I'm in love again, I guess.
Yes.
I'm in a relationship, so kudos. And I know both of y'all in relationships. It's the first time we all 3 in relationships.
Right.
Well, technically, I'm still single. I'm just dating someone that has my interest.
Oh,
Lord,
my bad.
We didn't need that. You good? You gonna be in a relationship?
No, I like him. He's bae. But yes, congratulations on the move.
Yeah, congratulations about
Thank
that.
you.
Definitely. Welcome to LA. Welcome to LA.
Thank you.
Hey.
LA's a mess, but I love it.
I know, right? And you actually used to live here anyways before, so yeah, it's new. It's still familiar territory.
So,
but yeah, before what did you want to start off with?
Yeah, see, me and JB got to get used to the 3 people talking together.
Oh, right.
But no, I wanted to ask, how's your art and everything going? Because I see there's a piece behind you that people will see if you're watching on YouTube. How's your art?
Oh yeah, this is actually the first painting I ever did. It's a portrait of my mom when she was, I believe in her 20s. So this is my I guess. Yeah, this is a portrait I did when I was basically grieving, her passing. So it helps me a lot. But I take it with me everywhere. Nice. I've been drawing a lot. So if you want to check me out at RayBae Draws on Instagram, this is where I usually post my art. I've been a little bit slow in posting right now because the pandemic really affected me, I guess emotionally in a way or mentally. And the art that I was doing was not really going with what the page was about, but I have other plans for that. But yeah, just check out some art I have on there. It's pretty dope. If you're interested in prints, let me know.
No, it is really dope.
No, that's what's up. That is what's up. It's a beautiful painting. I said that when I had first seen it. It is a very, very beautiful painting. So happy that you still have it up. But yeah, so for one, I do want to tell you that I am happy. I know Dev shares this happiness that you are back to have a conversation with you and to, pick your brain on some of the topics that we'll be discussing today. So I thank you for coming back and chilling and hanging out with us. And, just like Dev said, this is the original 3. So I know we're going to have a great conversation. So what we are talking about today is pretty much, Dev, correct me if I'm wrong, just kind of like the different lifestyles from like Africans that, literally migrated or immigrated to America versus Black people and the Black culture in America. And basically coming up and discussing and getting Ray's feedback on what he believes some of the differences are and cultures and, some of the, I guess, the conflicts, if you will, for lack of a better word, that we sometimes run into being different cultures. And then what would you say? What else would we be covering in that?
That's pretty much it. We're talking about the African diaspora overall, and in particular, the Black American experience versus a Black person that comes from that is born and raised in their culture. So as Ray will elaborate later on where he's from and stuff like that, obviously he's going to give his experience, and everyone's experience is different, but he's going to give his experience with regard to where he's from versus, you know, his experience being Black here in America. And and then also, like you said, the conflicts and why that may be the case. So
exactly. But I appreciate you mentioning the diaspora of it. The diaspora of Africa. And we'll get into that from speaking to Ray. So the first question that I have is exactly where are you from and how long have you lived there? And the second question would be how long have you lived in America? So where are you from?
So
how long are you living there? And then how long you live in America? Sorry, it's a delay.
It's so crazy because the question of where you're from is complicated because technically I was born in New York, but I was raised in Haiti. So as soon as I was born, like literally weeks, I was back in Haiti. So I was raised in Haiti up till I was about, I want to say 10, 11 years old. And then I moved to first Louisiana. I went to school in Shreveport. I went to middle school there. And then we moved back to Haiti and for a little bit. And then when I moved back to the States, I moved to Sacramento.
Okay. So we could say that would like basically going based upon Haiti, because that's not in the United States. How long total do you think that you had lived there before you officially kind of like was planted in America?
11 years.
Okay.
That's a good amount of time.
That is a good amount of time.
Especially if you've moved there from like the time you were born, like your developmental years were spent in Haiti and pretty much all of elementary school, right?
Yeah.
That is definitely a good amount of time. And also, it's also interesting that we've never talked about this like at length. Like, wow, all three of us were on the show.
Exactly. Because
we briefly touched on it on some trips.
You know what?
I think on a trip like to LA, we briefly touched on it.
Yes.
It was like a quick question, but we got to wherever we were going and we didn't continue the conversation. But I'm glad that y'all brought it up as a topic because it's a very necessary topic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So where do I want to begin? We're speaking about K through 12 or, you know, your elementary schools years being in Haiti. How or what do you think is in your experience, the difference in education with regard to being a Black person in America, learning what we we're supposed to learn, versus being a Black Haitian person in Haiti, where you're from, learning what you learned? What was the experiences and differences with that?
The experiences, okay. So school was the most important thing in everyone's life when you're that age. It's the competition. You know how some people celebrate sports? In Haiti, you celebrate achievements academically. So you would be celebrated. You were the number one person in your classroom. Whereas in the States, it's like, oh, if you were playing soccer or baseball or things like that, you'd be celebrated as a team. But nobody really cared who was top of the class. That's one thing that I found very different with the United States, especially for Black folks. Here, we're pushed to be more athletes and not achieving things academically. So that was very different for me. And I had some interesting situations because of that, you know, because I was I guess, know-it-all in the classroom, how everybody saw me, because my purpose is to learn whatever is being put in front of me. I wasn't focused on anything else. That's what my parents told me to be here for. But all the Black kids in the classroom were like, why are you trying to be a know-it-all? Why are you trying to answer questions? Why are you raising your hand? And it was so weird for me. I just felt like you couldn't do right either way.
Yeah. So what did you, I do have just a follow-up question to that. Like, what did you do to combat that? Like when they were asking you, saying that you were a know-it-all and teacher's pet and everything like that, like what did you do at that time to like counteract that? And do you think that how you felt at that time kind of played a part on who you are as a person right now?
I think what I did is I stopped being as present when the teacher asked, like, you know, if somebody knows the answer. I just stopped responding and I just knew things for the test. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I just know that I'm not going to win if I raise my hand and say the answer, but I know the answer for the test and I'm going to get my good grade.
Yeah. No, I feel that. That must be a tough situation to be in, child.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, like, well, I guess what even another follow up to that is, do you feel like you kind of alluded to the fact that you felt like you had to kind of conform to like not being as vocal in the classroom, but do you think that generally with Black people that are not from America or first generation or, you know, coming over, do you feel like there is like this, because they have a pride with where they're from, they have to show up and show out? And then I have a follow-up to that. Do you think with that pride, that could be the basis of seeing Black Americans as less than?
I think it's, you know what? I see, to be honest, yes. And it's not just because of education. I think it's because of media altogether. Because when you are in a different country and you're watching movies, the way that Black people are represented, it's very different because not only can you be limited on the language, you don't understand exactly what's going on in the movie, you're also limited on context. So you see Black people being criminals, you see Black people being arrested, you see Black people, you know, going against the police, but there's no context as of why. So the images they see, even if they knew exactly what the language was, without the historical context, you would judge Black people in a way, which is also by design. The images I've seen of Black people were not positive when I was in Haiti. But I've seen a lot of images of white people in media, and it makes you idolize them in a way.
Yeah. You know what I find really interesting is the fact that, what were you saying? Oh, it's a long ass delay, child.
I know that also. Sorry. The positive really comes through music, and I think that if you look at music and messages that the younger population of the Black diaspora, they pick up on hip hop and they learn about things from Black people's mouths, their music that's put on, and they kind of can empathize because they can see similar things going on in their own country. So I think that's also why hip hop and music from Black people has picked up in so many countries by younger generations, is because they understand the struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So why do you feel like, since there is some representation within music, that there is generally a disdain towards Black Americans? Do you feel like it's because people outside of the Black American experience look at Black people in America as ungrateful or lazy, or like, what do you think from your experience? Obviously, what do you think that is?
I think that people don't understand the barriers that Black Americans have faced. We are raised in a country where Black people, they look like each other. So when you go into school, when I went to school, most people look like me. And that's something I can say I'm very privileged to have seen, because it gave me a sense of confidence where you're not competing with white kids, you're competing with kids that look like you. So and everybody knew that we were there to learn. That was your most important thing. Where Black Americans been rejected in the school system. Somebody's on me right now. Black Americans have been rejected in the school system ever since they stepped in there.
Yeah.
So we did not face the same obstacles that you have. So we did not understand why you're not about school, not realizing how racist the school system was.
Yes. That's interesting. Because I can't conceptualize being raised up with other just Black children as a Black American, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't like wrap my head around that. And that's interesting because so I want to go back to something that you said earlier with regard to what we see in the media and what we see on television. I think generally as Black Americans, we see like Africa or even Haiti or the Dominican Republic, and we see it, and the media portrays it as this just is like dirty, just nasty, third world countries all the time. And it's like, oh, I would never, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would never own that. I would never want to go there. Like, that is just something I do not want to do. But then when you look at us, it's kind of like we're being treated and portrayed the same way, hearing what you just said in other countries as Black Americans. So that's very interesting to me, how like the parallels of that is.
I think we're getting images of each other that's not completely truthful. The images I saw of Black people when I was watching movies, it was out of context for me, but my brothers can understand it because my brothers were also close to my cousins who lived in the States. So they understood the culture, they understood the struggles, and whenever they had questions, my cousins can answer it for them. But I was too young, so the images I saw were not necessarily positive. And I think it's vice versa because when I move to the States and I tell somebody that I'm from Haiti, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're from this country where the kids have the flies in their hands begging for money," and I'm just like,
yeah,
wow, that was a very negative image of Haiti, but I know where it comes from. Those commercials that you see at night that shows you, oh, please give money for this, but they're not showing you. Yes, Haiti does have issues, economic issues. However, the country itself, like if you are looking for organic vegetables, if you are looking for beaches that are clean, if you're looking for just clean, just spring water. We're not lacking. We're not poor in that way. We're poor in the Western view of what I guess making it is or being affluent is. But we have all the natural resources to the point that the same people are telling you that this country's so far, don't go there, are trying to exploit us.
Yeah.
So
coming in and taking all the resources.
Yes, resources definitely. And when I visit Haiti, I see so many white people living out there, and they're like, "We ain't never going back. We're staying here." It's like the white people that actually been to Haiti have a hard time leaving Haiti.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So what, JB, do you have a question before? Because I've been.
Oh, you can go first. You can go. You got the questions.
Well, I want to ask you a question then, JB, actually. So have you in your life experienced someone that is not born and raised in America, that is Black, treat you less than, or have you ever felt treated that way because they see you as a Black American, right? They could be from Nigeria, they can be anywhere in Africa, they could be from Haiti, they could be from Jamaica, but because they have their culture, have you ever experienced a moment where they've treated you less, or you felt like they've treated you less than?
Absolutely, which is crazy. Still crazy to me because even with Ray explaining kind of like the background on why they look at African Americans differently, or they would look down on African Americans, I still am just confused by that because it's like a lot of the stuff that he mentioned, the reasons he mentioned on why they look down on African Americans are still part of their, their culture as well. Like, granted, not everybody is, what they look at as criminal or not doing well in school, but there are a lot of people that they can look next to and say, hey, this is happening in our country too. This is happening where we're from. It makes sense that it's still happening to them as well. So that connection on being one of the reasons why they look down on us is kind of like confusing because it's like, okay, y'all going through the same problems we have, just on a different level, and probably not as much as it's portrayed over in America. But I got his point about you know, them essentially only seeing images of us in a negative light on TV and everything like that in the media, and that could potentially, you know, sway their doings and, you know, their judgment towards, you know, Black Americans. But I also, what it was also interesting to me, and then I digress, is that when I've traveled to like a Jamaica, or when I traveled to like the Bahamas, you know, different, you know, Black people outside of, you know, America, like I definitely am approached and kind of like, you know, talked to with respect, and like they, you know, like they're actually holding their head down, and like I'm coming from here. I don't know why it's like that, but I've, you know, they approach me like, oh, he has money, or like, you know, and it's maybe because I'm visiting their, you know, their place, but it's always interesting to me that they do that when I'm out there, treat me like royalty, and then here they're like, that's so. Why is it so ghetto right now with this ambulance in the back? Like,
because
what's going on?
That's how they.
It's LA.
It's ghetto.
Listen, can we not record from home anymore? But anyways, like I was saying, it just lost my train of thought. Child.
No, you said, but when they're here, they look at you as
and I've literally got into it with a few people because I'm like, let's be clear, like we are equal. And when I mean we are equal, I'm talking about we are equal from, you know, the perspective of people who can lock us up and have been, you know, oppressing us for centuries. So that's what I mean. Yeah.
Ray, you say you can.
I can touch a little bit on that too. There is still a classism issue as well, which makes it even more complicated because let's say like Haiti is not a monolithic country. Like you have a generation, I mean, not generation, you have a group of people that understands the struggle that Black Americans are rapping about and singing about because they're living it. And you also have another population that is completely out of touch because of where they are economically. So they judge Black Americans that they deem criminals through media because they don't understand how they are suffering in like communities where that's being targeted by, you know, police and you know, and basically just suffering all the issues of poverty. So Haitians dealing with poverty understand the struggles of Americans dealing with poverty, but Haitians that are affluent are judging Black Americans that are not. So if a Haitian comes here on a flight to go become a doctor, they're gonna have a different view of Black Americans than the Haitian that came by a boat that struggled to make a way for their family.
That's a great point.
It's very complicated.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because as a Black American, I'm like I've experienced people that were from other parts of the Black diaspora, and they look at me like, oh, you should be grateful because you have this. You should be, why aren't you at this level? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, first of all,
right.
Like I wasn't brought up in a space where I felt that I had the power to do that. Like I know I have the power, but I've never felt that I've had the power to do that in my upbringing. Now I do, but growing up, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't see people that looked like me that were successful. I didn't see people that looked like me a lot, period, right? Also, I don't know where I'm from, so I can't have that foundation of pride that a lot of them have. And that is, and it's like, I just wish that there was a little bit more sympathy to the understanding of like, as Black Americans, it's like, no, we're not lazy generally. I mean, there are lazy, but there's lazy everybody, you know, like we're not lazy. We're not like expecting handouts. Like I can't be a doctor, but that doesn't mean my little brother or sister doesn't want to be a doctor. It's just like what opportunities are afforded to them being born and raised here in America is a little different. You know what I'm saying? So I just wish that there was a little bit more sympathy to the Black American experience, the Black USA of America experience.
The crazy thing is there is way more sympathy than you can even imagine. The only thing is it's not being broadcasted to you. Because the population of Haitians that are affluent, that are judging other folks, it's not that much statistically, not compared to the rest of, you know, Americans. So it's not that much. But if you're looking at the population that you don't hear from, you just have to listen to their music. They are mimicking Black American culture through their music to show solidarity. You can see it in Jamaica, you can see it in Haiti, you can see it in Dominican Republic, you can see it in, even Brazil. But I didn't realize how connected we were until I really studied Pan African studies. And professors brought this type of music in the classroom and to show us the same thing we're rapping about is the same thing that they are as well, especially when it comes to the injustices. So the same way they're not showing you the revolutions that are happening in those countries, they're not showing you. You're not hearing the music. So I'll say it's definitely something to research.
Yeah,
but the people that you've gotten in touch with, they're out of touch on both sides.
Yeah,
I could see that. I'm happy that we are kind of focused on that specific topic for a while, because I think that's honestly how a lot of Black Americans feel. I think that what we're discussing today, in general, I feel like a lot of people have had that type of experience from, someone, that immigrated here or someone that's not from here, and not even necessarily when it comes, not necessarily just the African diaspora. It's like also with different, like, South America cultures or European cultures or, Asian cultures, we've all felt some type of judgment or some type of just feeling when it comes to somebody that is not from out. So I do want to make that point. But I also want to ask you one last question, and then I pass it over to Dev. Going back to you, two-part question. What do you think is for you personally, what do you think was the hardest thing to get accustomed to coming here as a Haitian to America, like culture-wise? And then in general, what do you think just hypothetically speaking for everyone, what do you think is the biggest thing? So for you, and then what do you think is the biggest thing that people have to get accustomed to when coming from Haiti?
Ooh, it's a culture shock. It is a culture shock because the things that we were told is important when we come here. And I have to admit, like, I'm privileged in the sense that I'm the type of Haitian that didn't have to struggle to, I guess, make ends meet. I am a U.S. citizen, so I'm not also dealing with, basically getting citizenship in this country. So I'm very privileged in that way. But it's a culture shock in the sense that Black people here, first of all, I didn't even know I was Black until I moved here. Let's put it that way. I was Haitian. And I took a plane here and I landed and I was Black and I didn't understand what that meant.
Wow.
So, and then when you try to get to know the Black people, they don't understand one, because I didn't understand the language. English is like my fourth language. So I was like, I'm learning English and trying to like meet people that look like me, because I didn't really understand white folks when I moved here. I mean, especially when I was in Louisiana, so I kind of gravitated to the Black folks. But the teasing that came, I just thought that it was like othering a little bit. Like they called me Frenchy. Like they were interested in the fact that I spoke French. They're interested in like the fact that I was different, but it was kind of like a teasing that came with it, and it made me uncomfortable because I wasn't used to that culture. I call it the mama, your mama jokes culture. I'm not used to it because Haitians don't really do that like that.
Yeah.
So I also didn't speak the language. I was learning English. It was hard. School was hard, period, because they put me in a math that I've already completed, but only because they don't like I couldn't understand it. Like the metric system changed, the language changed. So I'm back to doing a math that I know I did, but I have to redo it in this other language. And Black folks don't understand me, don't see me, and I didn't feel comfortable being around them. And I don't feel comfortable being around white folks. And you're just kind of like in this limbo and you're trying to figure it out.
Right.
And it takes a while for you to get it. You get placed in ESL classes, so you feel less than. You feel like you're a little dumbed down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you pick up the language and you pick up the culture and you pick up everything's going on, you still feel like you're in limbo. But I understood that I was black, but I
Mm-hmm.
also understood that a lot of black people won't understand. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
No, it does.
No,
It
that makes
definitely
sense.
does.
So what do you think for you, your answer to
Mhm.
this would be to kind of like bridge that gap between like Black Americans and everyone else that's not
I
Black from America?
I think it's a lot more conversations like this needs to happen. And I think that even in schools, there should be programs where people don't just assume that black kids are going to get along with black kids. Like, not understanding that we have different nationalities, different, we come from different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Africans sometimes have a hard time mixed with African Americans. And that's why sometimes you go to schools and there'll be like an African alliance and then you'll be a BSU and you're like, what? And that's what happens. It's just that it's in a sense different, and they're trying to like be in community with each other, but sometimes it can be a bit of a division.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a little bit more conversation and education between the two groups, and we'll be on the same page.
No, yeah, totally. And I experienced that when I went to SF State. There was like a BSU, there was the African group, and then there was like an Eritrean group. So
Yes.
it was just like, it was just like so many, different things that was kind of like, I don't want to take like Eritreans, for example, and force them into being under the umbrella of BSU. But it's also, like you said, like having that conversation and the understanding of like, the differences and why they felt like they needed to make their own group separate from BSU, not because they maybe generally optimistically thinking they didn't look down on BSU, but they just wanted something more that was like for them and like they can, tie to. So
that's why I can sometimes understand. A lot of people make fun of like people like, let's say, like Dominicans, saying like, do y'all know y'all black people? And they don't. But if you've been in Dominican Republic, you would understand how that happens. They don't have a black identity because they have a Dominican identity. So it's not until they hit places like New York or places in the United States that they understand like, oh yeah, I'm black. And so when when you speak to a Dominican from Dominican Republic, or you're speaking to somebody from someplace like New York, Dominicans in New York have a black identity. They have an Afro-Latino identity. But Dominicans coming straight from Dominican Republic have removed, like, their African ancestry have been hidden from them, even in their history, and images of people that the images of their heroes have been whitewashed. So there's no images of them of any African pride. So I can be sympathetic.
Yeah.
Because I know their history and how.
Yeah. No, finish. I'm sorry. The delay is. It's I feel like we on The View because they be having delays. But go ahead. Finish your thought. I do have a follow-up to that point though.
Yeah, they're African from anything that's considered Dominican, so they don't have that black pride that other countries do. What was that?
Oh no, you were freezing for a minute, but I heard what you said though.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, let's just push through.
The follow-up that I wanted to ask though, and we had a conversation about this in some season prior. We talked about colorism. Do you think that colorism plays a role in how people outside of Black America, because we already know colorism is a situation here in America, right? Do you think that plays a role from anyone from the outside looking in?
Absolutely. Colorism plays a role globally. Like, I was watching my new thing now. I've been watching TV shows on YouTube from all over the world. I gave up social media, and YouTube and Pinterest were my two number my only two things that I went to for a moment. And I was watching TV shows from Thailand, and I'm like, where's the difference in shades?
Yeah.
Everybody on the TV show was white. Even the commercials were like, "Oh yeah, use this makeup; it makes you look white." And I was like, "Wow, it's crazy." I learned about those things in college, but colorism is very like intense, especially in these countries. That's why you see a lot of people still bleaching their skins in Africa, Jamaica, or even Haiti.
Right. Right. I only thought about that because of my experiences with like Puerto Ricans or Dominicans feeling like they, in order to be or be perceived as better, they would have to be of a lighter skin tone. But that's also something that parallels here. So that's something that runs deep within just the Black experience overall. That it's just kind of mind blowing to think about. But that's something else that I think we can come together and focus on and be like, hey, like all three of us are brown skinned and look good as fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like it's just like you don't have to be light skinned to be like, I guess, better than or lighter skin. But that was kind of like a caveat from what you were just saying with regard to the Dominican thing. But the last question I have, I don't know if JB has any more, but the last question I have is, what do you miss most about home in Haiti?
Oh my God, just the food, the beach, nature, like clean air. Haiti's like paradise, y'all, for real. Like you go to certain parts of Haiti and you're like, this is paradise. You would never see water so blue. You see fishes like playing with your feet, coconut water, seafood by the beach, even though I'm vegan now. I still remember it. Um, the way food tastes will blow your mind. Like eating a banana in Haiti or an avocado in Haiti is very different from eating one here. Because I remember when I first moved here, I'm like, why does food taste so bland? The fruits, man, it's like all your senses will be overwhelmed of how amazing that place is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like I'm sure it's also beautiful just to be surrounded by Black people.
Like, oh yes, white people. Everybody's Black.
Yeah, but it's
everybody's Black. And the thing is, Haitians are still very cautious of white people. They still call them, blanc. It's like these white folks, because I guess Haitians have they have a big pride in their history, and their history is the reason why they look like they look, and why I feel privileged from coming from that country, because it gave me a beautiful, positive sense of myself as a Black man, of my skin. I never struggled with my looks. I never struggled feeling less than around white folks, because I came here as Haitian. I grew up never worrying about what I look like. So that's very different. But yeah, it's a beautiful country. And the people, oh man, the people are so beautiful. The people are like, you will see kids with less than what most of us have here in the States. And they're running around with their makeshift toys and they're laughing and having a good old time in the street. And you just can't help but smile, like how they can bring themselves joy. And I think not having I think we think what is happiness is based on what you have, but Haitians really know life is what you make of what you have. You know, when you don't have to compare yourself to what everybody else has, or like what rich is. People really like find joy.
Right. And that's so beautiful. I just really wish that there wasn't so as much of a divide. I think we're getting a lot better in understanding, and thank you for coming in.
We definitely are. I think you will find most of those conversations in academic spaces, and like there's a lot of improvements that have happened.
Yeah.
But we don't know about it if you're not in college, Right. You don't know about how people talk about they were inspired by African Americans to start movements in their own country.
Right.
And those conversations not brought to you most likely strategically.
Right.
But I would say seek it out. YouTube, they're speaking on YouTube.
Absolutely. And that's and just to piggyback off of that, like, because everybody, you know, doesn't have the means to go to college, but it's like the information is out there if you're willing to like seek it out and learn, right?
Seek it out, yes.
Yeah, I think you would you know, you and I were privileged enough to go to college and be able to like gain different understandings of that experience. But overall, like when I think of my parents, for example, like my mom and my stepdad, like they still are kind of in, not to throw them under the bus, but they're still kind of in that prehistoric mindset of what blackness looks like outside of America, like in Africa, in Haiti, in Dominican, in Puerto Rico. You know what I'm saying? Like in Brazil, like that's where their head is at still. And it's interesting because what we didn't talk on, I know we're going to wrap it up, but what we didn't talk on is how, or as much on, is how Black people look at everyone else, or Black Americans look at everyone else as less than. And I think that is what really kind of causes the divide, because you look at like people, like Black people from Africa that come over here, and you're just like, oh, like what, like you came from like a third world country, like that's not, like we're privileged here, you know what I'm saying? And but there's a constant battle back and forth with that. At the core of it, we Black as fuck, okay? So
exactly. And the thing is that we also need to shed that mindset, because I've seen places in America, I'm like, this looks like a third world country, you know? But I think America has done a good job. They have a good PR system where we're American, we're the number one.
Right.
And then I think last year and a little bit of this year, there's been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of Americans. They were like, it's not that great.
Right.
You know,
right.
With everything that's happened, it's like we're not just gonna like sit in this privilege of a given title and actually think about the issues that they do have and want to fix it to make America what they've been promoting it to be.
Right.
Because I came here and first thing I thought was school was easy here. School was easy. I was like, A, B, C, and D, what? Not essay questions? I was doing essay questions in elementary school, you know?
Yeah.
And I was doing algebra 2 in elementary school.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, America, like I always say, America is a third world country. I mean, not to like make third world countries like a thing or belittle them or make them in any type of way, but America's a third world country dressed in Gucci, child. That's what I say all the time. Because it is like with the things that we have going on here, we really have to work on it. But I really implore, especially our listeners that have been listening to us and to this episode, like, you know, do a bit more research. I hope you got something from this episode. Like, we are not against each other, and vice versa. Anyone that's not American, like that into this, like we're not against. Like we are all the same. Like if we walk into a store together, I promise you, anywhere in the world, you are Black, regardless of where if you're African, from Africa, Haitian or Dominican, you know, I mean Dominican or whatever. Like if we walk into a store together and we look the same, we're Black. And we
also give people time to learn.
I don't want to box us all in and say we have the same fight, but we have a lot of the similar fight, because we have the same fight. Like if you're coming from somewhere else and you're coming to America, you have a lot of other hurdles you have to go over and get through. And I understand that. And fellow Black Americans, I implore you to understand that as well. But at the core of it, we are one and the same. We all were a stop on the boat. So, Jay, did you have anything else you wanted to say to that, or I have any more questions?
I think you said everything. No, I'm good. I just definitely want to thank Ray for stopping by and having this conversation with us. It was great to have you back. You know, hopefully everybody that's listened to this episode goes back and listen to our throwback episodes in the first and second season and hear some of the topics that we discussed back then. And, you know, again, I appreciate you stopping by. It was a good conversation. I actually learned a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we're so happy to have RayBae back on. He was with us from 1 to 3. So if you go back to 1 to 3, seasons 1 to 3, you will hear RayBae's take on a lot of things. And he talks about sex too, but this is not a sex episode. But RayBae, thank you so much for coming on, for talking with us and giving your experience. Like I said, I'm surprised we haven't had this conversation before while we were all on together. But I'm so glad that you came on to have this conversation with us today. And yeah, I'm so happy to hear everything that's going on with the success of your drawings and everything. Everything looks beautiful. Show everybody your drawing one more time in the back before we go.
And shout out your Instagram. Shout out your drawing Instagram.
Thank you so much, y'all, and thank you for the shout outs and everything. And I definitely enjoyed myself. I definitely love talking about this topic, and I'm going to continue educating the folks that are coming in, having that mindset, because I've definitely encountered those conversations. Have to let them know. Wait up, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna realize that this is not what you think it is.
Right.
And it's a growth thing. It's as they're here, they're gonna realize their perception of what the U.S. is and how Black folks are here is not the reality. And
it's not what they say. It's not what they show on TV. So
yeah,
and his IG. I know you asked earlier, JB. His IG is RayBae Draws. As far as his drawing page goes, I don't know if you want his personal one out, but that.
Oh no, you can put my personal one. Is RayBae still RayBae 88? I believe.
Boom.
I'm back. It's the new year. Yeah, and then RayBae Draws is my my drawing one.
Yes. Well, and also happy birthday. Your birthday's coming up. I want to see when this comes out. Your birthday will be like right there. Let me see. Let me look at the calendar.
The next day.
Your birthday will be tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. My 33, Jesus' birthday.
Yes.
Okay.
My Jesus here.
We love to see it. But all right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening to another episode of #SlickTalk and seeing our faces. And keep tuning in. We'll see y'all next week. We love y'all so much. Take care of yourselves. Peace out.